Hi, my name is Tia Ramey, and I love giving communication tips and strategies to leaders to help them both personally and professionally. You can learn more about my communication tips in my book. It's called Canceled Mastering Difficult Conversations in a Modern World. You can find it on my website, tiaramey.com. It's also available as an audiobook on Audible. So if you love to listen instead of read, then feel free to download. It's out there. Just Google search it, Canceled, and you'll come across many sources that will allow you to purchase it. Today, what I really want to talk to you about, in light of the new year, Happy New Year, by the way, is just how to communicate with yourself. In particular, today about anger. And most of my videos and my content is usually about how to communicate with another person. But I really wanted to start doing a new series on communicating with yourself because that internal dialogue that you have with yourself is so important. And if you can learn how to think through some of the things that you say before you say it, then it'll set you up for success with how to converse with another individual. For example, like I said, we're going to have this conversation in regards to anger. How do you communicate with yourself about your anger? Are you struggling with anger? Do you have some things that are bothering you that you want to let go of? you know I hear so many people struggle, including myself in the past, have struggled with how to let things go, and people give these, I call them little words with big meaning. One of those words is forgive. They tell you you have to forgive, you have to let something go, but they don't say how. What does that mean? What is the internal struggle? What does that dialogue look like? And so I thought that what I could do now and moving forward is to start to have these sort of conversations with how do we take these little words with big meanings, and how do we process them within ourselves? And once you can do that successfully, then what you say to another person is just going to come naturally to you. I believe in that. And I know that the rest of the world will have you to think that if you talk to yourself, you're crazy. I say, on the contrary, I think that we have this society where there's more messaging and more rhetoric, and there's more propaganda coming to us than ever. The world would love for us to just absorb whatever they say without taking the time to properly process it and give us the tools for how to have internal dialogue, how to place and separate the good information from the bad information. Talk it through with yourself and see what makes sense, right? And so I firmly believe that we've got to move forward with learning how to have those sorts of tools. And so you'll see that in more of my content moving forward. Now, let's get back to this discussion about anger. You've got some things you want to let go of this year. You want to lighten your load. You want to eliminate some stress. Let's figure out how to process those things that we're still mad about. And I'm speaking in particular to some of the things that may be past experiences that are still showing up in your present today. It's holding you back mentally and emotionally. Maybe it's holding you back from opportunities. Maybe it's holding you back from having healthy relationships now because you're still mad about something in the past. And, one of the first things I like to ask myself, and I'm going to be transparent, forgiveness and letting go of anger is not something that came naturally to me. So I will just say that, that's something I've had to learn how to do over the years, mostly because I didn't have a lot of people who were challenging me that way. I grew up as an only child for the first 12 years. And by the time my siblings even got old enough to really get on my nerves, I had moved out and started my own life. Even my youngest sister is 17 years younger than I am. And so I hadn't been challenged, not until I got married, to be honest, with someone living in my space of how to learn how to quickly let things go. Quickly let things go being a key word. And I'm still getting there, but I had to develop a process for myself, a checklist of what I have to go through so that I can move off some of the old junk and start to create a brand new day for myself with a new, fresh attitude, a new mindset, a new mentality that sets me free from some of the burdens and the pains of the past. Even the traumas, we've all gone through some dark things, we've gone through hard times, and we can carry some of those things with us today. But you know what? Just because we carry it doesn't mean it has to be painful. It doesn't have to be that we're still angry about it today. But how do we go from taking it from being something we're mad at to being something that we are empowered of, that we have survived? How do we go from being victims to survivors? That's the dialogue that we're going to have, because the language of the victim is very different than the language of the survivor. And I want to give you some empowering words. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with talking to yourself. It's what you say to yourself that makes the difference as to whether or not that's healthy. So let's just start with this one word. I don't know if anyone has ever asked you, and one of the things I say is so important when we talk about anger is being honest with yourself. Please be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, you can't get anywhere. And sometimes that is where it's good to have therapists or people who are unbiased that can help you get to that place of honesty if you struggle with it, because everyone isn't very self aware, right? But start there. And here's the question that I want to give you: what is the purpose of my anger? Sit with that for a minute. Think through that. I believe that anger has an assignment. There is a reason why the initial feeling that you felt when you were betrayed or when you were hurt or traumatized, it usually wasn't anger. Mostly you probably felt hurt first, and then somewhere, or you were afraid first. Maybe you were scared, and somewhere anger became the transition. And oftentimes, anger is a trigger of a survival instinct that helps us to feel strong in times where people made us feel weak. Sometimes we are angry, and sometimes we're still angry because we don't want to feel the vulnerability that maybe someone took advantage of, but if you don't acknowledge it, you're even more vulnerable than if you just walk around angry pretending that it's not there. So really ask yourself, what is the purpose of my anger? There is a righteous anger that you can have, especially when someone does you wrong. There's nothing wrong with being angry about that. But let's say it's 10 years from now. Your life is totally different. You're in a different space. You're not dealing with those people anymore. If you're still mad, why? Ask yourself that. Sometimes we're still angry because we don't trust ourselves anymore. And let me walk you through what I mean exactly by that. Let me back up a little bit. That pain that we feel when someone hurt us, it is a signal, right? Like I said, it's a survival instinct that, okay, someone made me feel terrible. Now I am angry. Pain is a great signal. It's an indicator of a place of our life that needs to change, something we need to get away from, and we need to get away from it immediately. Oftentimes, that can be true. Especially depending on the level of the offense, right? And sometimes we pushed ourselves past our capacity and someone took advantage of that. And we're angry. Sometimes we're angry with ourselves that we didn't trust ourselves, or we're angry that we didn't get away sooner, or we're angry that we didn't know any better. We're angry that someone took advantage of the fact that we didn't know any better, or they took advantage of the fact that we're still young, or we were too young at the time. And that anger is that we feel betrayed and we have lost the sense of, can I trust myself? And we put up this nice wall of anger that tells us, well, you know what? Let me hold on to this anger, because as long as I'm angry, I won't make that mistake again. But here's where I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to come out of that space of no longer trusting yourself, right? You don't need that anger anymore. So all because anger has a purpose. And if that is your purpose, is that someone took that away from you, and now you want the anger to remind you to not go there again, not help them out again, not do business with them again, never be taken advantage of again. If that's what the anger is doing for you, it's protecting you and helping you to remember what went wrong so that you don't go there again. Here's how you let that go. I want you to tell yourself that you are an intelligent person and that you have learned a lesson. And now what you may have to do is go back and figure out what kind of steps and protocols do you need to put in place to create the distance or to create boundaries. What would you do differently now moving forward? Now that you know what you know about them or that thing, what would you do differently? Really think through that. If you haven't taken the time to put that process in place, you might still hold on to that anger because you've never given yourself a process. And I want you to learn how to develop a process for how to protect yourself away from the emotions, just using your intelligence. Let's just use our logic. These are the facts. Let's deal with facts and figures. What is the process for how I'm going to protect myself moving forward? Once you know what that process is, then you can say, Now, the assignment of anger, I can let it go because I'm an intelligent person and I'm graduating from instinct and emotional instinct into making these decisions with intelligence. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. When I was a kid, my cousin left the iron on and I hit my hand on the back of that iron. I burned my hand. I had a terrible burn on my hand. For years, I can still see it. I was probably about 10 years old. Now, I was very angry with my cousin for doing that. But you know what I did? I had to put in a process for learning how to test hot things and make sure that surfaces that appear to be hot were tested before I allowed myself to get too close to it. I didn't know that the iron was on that day, and we were playing and it burned me. So I was mad at him. But now that I put a process in to say what surfaces are hot, how do I protect myself from that bad thing happening again? I realized that my cousin didn't have enough maturity to turn off the iron. So I put in a process, how do I protect myself? Now, today, I'm not afraid of the iron anymore. Like I said, sometimes the anger really was is that we were afraid first, but we don't want to feel the fear. We'd rather feel angry because anger feels more powerful than fear. But really, if you cut through all that noise, it's really just fear at its core. I'm great with the iron now. I went to school for fashion design and I've learned a lot about tailoring. That was my favorite subject. So I'm actually excellent with an iron at this point in my life. I'm not angry with the iron anymore. I no longer have to look at the scar to tell me how to deal with an iron or that I should stay away from the iron. I learned how to master it. I'm not afraid of it. And now I don't feel vulnerable by it anymore. And I don't feel vulnerable by my cousin and their recklessness at the time. I have graduated from my emotions of what happened to me and even the upset of the scar that it left on my body into my intelligence. So, what I'm asking you to do and what I'm challenging you to do is have some real dialogue with yourself to say, now that I know this information, now that I have this about this and that person, one, how did I really feel? And you might say, I felt afraid, I felt betrayed, I was scared, I was hurt. Use the real vulnerable words. Communicate with yourself about your real feelings. Then go back again and talk about the purpose of the anger. Why are you angry? Why are you still angry? What is that anger doing for you today? Then I want you to develop a process for how you will protect yourself moving forward. What processes can you put in place? What boundaries can you put in place to now make you feel safe again? Because that's what we really want. Everyone wants to feel safe emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. It's a basic human right. It's something that we all want. And so you need to have enough dialogue with yourself to figure out what is your path to safety, right? And make sure that that's healthy. And this is where good our therapists and our psychiatrists and psychologists or mentors come in, and having a good sound voice to ensure that we're not just putting in protective methods that are based on our emotions, but based on facts, based on intelligence. You are a smart person. And once you have a good process that you feel comfortable with, you can go back to trusting yourself to make good decisions. So you no longer need to go back and look at those old scars to help you make new decisions, right? You're going to create some new scars. So we've got to learn how to offload the old stuff, move into the new stuff. Now, for me, that's what forgiveness really is in that process. It really is saying that, you know what? I know that happened to me. I know those people did that to me. They weren't as mature as I am, but I can't go any further with this old weight. And I don't even want anything from them. I don't need an apology from them anymore. If there's any debt that they owe me, I have got to move into the next iteration of my life light and free, because whatever I expect from them still keeps me bound to a bad memory. That's what forgiveness is. It is letting it go and saying, you don't owe me anything anymore. I am too free for this. I'm too liberated to stay in this moment and lock myself into this space. Have that dialogue with yourself in 2023. I promise you it's empowering. And if you're struggling with it, that's okay. You may have to have that conversation with yourself every day for a little while and remind yourself, I am smart, I am intelligent, I am wise. I don't need this scar anymore. I don't need to keep remembering that this person did this to me way back when 20, 30 years ago. That was then, this is now. I'm a new person. I'm wiser. I'm smarter. I have great boundaries. I've put great structures in place for myself to protect myself from that. And if you haven't done that yet, that's the real work that will keep you from being angry. Get yourself far removed from all of that, right? Liberate yourself from all of that. But I hope that this helped. It's so important that you realize that pain is nothing more than a signal. And it just helps you to understand that there are new structures that you need to put in place, a distance, whatever the case may be, depending on the situation. So it's not about how you feel at a certain point, it's just about what you know. And when you are free enough to make those decisions aside from anger, because you don't need the anger anymore, once you understand the facts and once you understand how you should move forward with the facts that you have, it's not even necessary. The anger no longer has an assignment. So what you have to do is take the assignment away from the anger. And guess what? If you struggle with bitterness in so many other areas, sometimes it's really just one underlying thing that hits you and it hits you hard that you got to go back and deal with. And once you deal with that one thing, then it starts to resolve a lot of the other things. For example, some people may say, oh, you're a really harsh communicator. You're too hard. This is a mean person. Sometimes that stems back to some old things, right? Sometimes it does. Again, this is how we transition from the language of the victim to the language of the survivor. Trust yourself again. Trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself to put in good boundaries and practices that will make you feel safe, once again, get some wise counselors. All leaders need wise counsel. Great leaders have wise counselors around them, advisors that they can trust to help them set that up, and people that they can put around them that will honor their boundaries. Because to me, that is the true definition of respect. It's not that I agree with your boundaries, but I honor them. Right? Well, anyhow, I want to say thank you. This video ran just a little bit long. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you enjoyed this, I hope that you will share it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also visit my website. Again, you can find my book on tiaramey.com to give you more communication tips and strategies. And I hope to see you in the next video.